Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, needing a laugh to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. Remember that you can always casually subscribe to the podcast on basically any streaming services. We're available, as well as Facebook Watch and YouTube. But enough about that for right now. The real focus needs to go to our upcoming casual guest that is right here with us. Give it up for comedian Gabe Kea. Thank you, crowd.
Yeah, it's good to be casually with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it was great kind of getting to know you a little bit before you got, before you got here, but you actually logged in before I got here. So thank you for being so patient. But for those of you who weren't there with our casual discussion, Gabe, why don't you tell everybody how you're casually doing today? What's going on over in Cincinnati, Ohio?
In Cincinnati, we're ramping up, ready for Christmas. Christmas lights are out in my neighborhood. Got everybody's festive. There's Santa Clauses there's a Santa Claus next door that's like a human life-size Santa Claus that just runs like this and says, ho, 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 ho. And he does it it's kind of like every hour and a half. So I wish it was like every 5 minutes so I could go out there and videotape it. But it's so creepy and funny, and it's festive. It's great. Our neighborhood really does. They do step it up on Christmas. Everybody likes to put some lights out. We have actually on our roof we have like a 30-foot star that we put every Christmas. Yeah, and Christmas lights, a giant star. And we're at the end of a cul-de-sac. So when you turn onto our street, you just see it looks like we're like big Dallas Cowboy fans, but just a star.
I love that, though. So wait, do you and your wife do that together? How does this all work? Or is it just like you and some pals? Tell us the secret of doing Christmas lights on the street.
I would say me and my wife do it together. And by that, she's on the ground yelling at me and telling me where to put things. And then I think one year when we first started doing it, now we've got it down. So I know where, like, where it should go, what it should look like. And I do it pretty quick and efficiently. But I think the first year we did it, it was her like, move it a little this way. And then you realize like how difficult it can be to like hang Christmas lights. And then you see these people that just like shoot the Christmas. They've got like a little projector that shoots the Christmas lights onto them. I'm like, that's cheating. There's no, you didn't almost break up putting those up, like that's so cheap. I want old school Clark Griswold, can't figure out why they're not turning on because you have so many up there. That's what I like, those Christmas lights.
I was about to say, this sounds like the best Christmas movie. I would absolutely watch this. So if anybody's got any connections to Netflix, Hulu, FX, can we like cast Gabe Kea in this? Because this is a great storyline. I feel like it's actually relatable. I relate to Abby. So I'm like, hey. Yeah. I actually thought, well, speaking of your wife, I thought that was so sweet. We'll talk about your album here too. You are known. How long have you been doing comedy, by the way, Gabe?
I've been doing comedy since 2003. I did my first open mic at the St. Louis Funny Bone in Westport Plaza. So that was the first time I went on stage. Long time ago. It's like some people, I was telling someone, I was like, it's almost been 10 years that I've been telling people I've been doing comedy for 10 years. Like,
yes.
It's like, so easy just to say 10 years, but then it was like 13, and I'm like, well, let's just still say 10. That sounds good. Round number.
Yeah.
But long time. This is my first album too. So some people were like, it's overdue or whatever. I think I waited till the right time, and I was ready to release an album. And a lot of St. Louis, a lot of Cincinnati influences in my comedy in general. So.
Well, we have that in common because, as I was telling you before we started recording, my hometown, as many people know, is Cincinnati, Ohio. And I said you and I kind of made a switch where you went back to Cincinnati and I moved back here. So I always heard about you. You were kind of like the legend with no face in my mind. Everybody's like, Gabe Kea. Yeah, Gabe. Yeah, Gabe's the man. And I was like, who is this? I don't know. But then I went to go bananas because I was doing a show there. Shout out to Spark Tabor, who did a Christmas show up there. And I told you I was in the bathroom and I saw your sticker while I was washing my hands. And I went, oh, this is the guy. So you got like semi-recognized a little bit.
My first thought was, oh, I know what sticker you're talking about. And then I was like, wait, no, that's in the men's restroom. There's one in the women's restroom too?
Yeah,
like,
there was one of them. Yes, that's what I was like, unless it's been removed since then. But there was something. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because Jimmy, my boyfriend that we talked about, you were just on Day at Night podcast, shout out to them, also said he saw a sticker too while he was in there. So I was like, what is happening? So we've got you both on our podcast. We both saw your sticker. But the most important thing, what we should be recognizing you for is your album. It is very good. I got to listen to it at work. It is called Dumber Than a Fish, where you do feature a very sweet portion about Abby, which I actually was very touched by. Obviously, I'm a lady, so I'm like, oh, this is so cute. But I thought that was really adorable. So that's awesome to kind of recognize people who make a positive impact in your life. But what I loved about it was, speaking of St. Louis and Cincinnati, you kind of opened up with doing the two cities that you kind of been a part of mostly for home for your life. So what kind of, what made you think, you know what, to open up this album, why did you choose your focus on St. Louis and Cincinnati other than it just being your home? Because I saw too, you kind of had some time in Canada as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my family is from Canada originally. So both my parents are Canadian. I always, especially when I started doing comedy in St. Louis, I always got identified as being Canadian because it was just like a good way for people to make fun of me. They'd be like, you're Canadian, the Canadian guy, you know? Like, so that's where that comes from, more so than if you actually like learn about my life, you're like, oh, you're barely Canadian. Why do you say you're Canadian? You know, like I just went up there probably in the summer times when I was a kid. I always went to school in the States, educated here in America, went to college in America, got arrested in college in America. That's how I did it. Pardon me.
That's okay.
But I think the dynamic of St. Louis and Cincinnati is kind of the story of me. My comedy is somewhat autobiographical. I try to talk about personal things, and then I try to also talk about like observational, topical things as well, and kind of mix the both together. And I think as a comedian, you do well when you're telling stories that are personal to yourself, because nobody else has a jean quilt that their mom made them when they were, you know, like something that's very unique like that. If you can find those aspects of your life and kind of build a joke around that, you're not going to have to worry about 7 other comics doing the same joke about turtles and paper straws, which is another joke from the album that basically anybody could have thought of, that it doesn't have anything to do with my life or my story, but it's still something that I've been doing and I enjoy doing and I wanted to add on the album. So
Yes. Well, it's like I said, it's really, I love that everything just kind of sequentially just fell into place for it. How is I mean, I guess in your opinion, how has it been received? Have you been kind of feeling like it's been getting some positive reviews? What have been people, other than me being like, let's talk about this? Obviously, my opinion is the best, but what have people been saying about it?
I think you're a perfect example of someone that maybe had heard about me before or heard my name, but had never really seen me do stand-up comedy. So if that's their first impression of me, that's my act I've been working on for the last 10, 15 years, So it is a good representation of
good. Good. Yeah. I'm happy.
Yes, no, it was so weird when it first came out. You have all these Cincinnati comedians basically writing like what sounds like your eulogy. It's like I just died and Gabe's done so much for me, and here's how he took me on a one-nighter in the middle of Kentucky or something. And you read it through it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. This is like, and it just shows that it's a big moment in my comedy journey or comedy career, whatever you want to call it. But I think it was received very well. I've had a lot of positive feedback. It's obviously right now at a weird time in the middle of a pandemic where I got very lucky in my timing of when I recorded the album in January, which was a couple months before everything shutting down. And I know I feel bad for some of my friends that had kind of their album was coming together and they were getting ready to do it and it was going to be in April or something, and that ended up not happening. So I found there's to be a very fortunate timing with that. Mm-hmm. And then to be giving out or having content that you don't need to be going and performing, and it's out on all the different formats that you can get it on, and it's going to be some tracks got picked up by Sirius XM. That's very exciting for me.
Congratulations! That's awesome, Gabe. Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I've been very excited about it, and it's so much hard work, and you don't really realize it until you go through the whole process, and then you kind of see. And now I see other friends, peers of mine, other comedians putting out albums, and I understand what all goes into that, and I want to. Whereas before, I would probably be like, I don't need to post about that. Now I'm like, I got to post about it. It's so important. It's so important for them. They put so much hard work into it, and knowing that the first step, I think, is the shows. Obviously you want to have. Or show, if you're doing one show, one night, I didn't want to do that because I was worried about the pressure of doing it all in one night. And if it's a week, you mess up one show, maybe we'll use the Saturday show or something like that. So, and then I was worried, well, are people going to show up to see me, and had good help promoting those shows from other comedians here in Cincinnati. A lot of people really everybody that I basically ever knew from doing comedy was popping up at these shows, and people were two friends that I both know from different worlds are meeting each other, and they're like, Gabe, I know Gabe. It's really such a cool experience in that sense. And almost so when the week was over, I was like, this album I don't even care if it comes out or whatever. This was a success already,
Yes.
But then that gives you a good feeling that you've got something good that you can work with. And then there's a lot of hard work as far as the audio engineer, the audio editing, and sitting down with a friend of mine from Cincinnati. He's the local comedian, Clinton Jacob, did all the audio mixing, and we had to listen to me doing comedy for like 6 hours in a studio together, which is, that's like torture right there for me, at least. I don't know. Clinton's probably like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done listening to Gabe's set now. No.
Aw, I'm sure that's not how he feels at all. So good job, Clinton.
Yeah. No, he did a great job. He helped me name the album. He helped me make great decisions on content about what I should keep, what I shouldn't keep, and I'm always erring towards the side of like, let's cut out that dirty part. Let's cut out and he's like, no, that's great. That's raw. That's what you want. That was the moment. And I'm like, all right, okay.
Sure. I mean, like, especially people who are in editing like that, they do know what they're talking about. I relate to you in that sense, having to like, even running this podcast, I'll get my, episode sent back. And it's just like, at least for me, Gabe, it's just the worst listening to myself, because this is so fun right now in the moment talking to you. But then I have to like listen back and I'm like, why was I laughing there? Like, I just asked him a question and all of a sudden I started giggling. Why? I was asking a question. Like, I don't understand. And you're like, everybody else is like, oh, it's fine. Like, we love your reactions. And I'm just like, oh, I think we're just like our own worst critic. You're just like, oh, like, this is weird. And it's just like, no, like, this is great. You should keep that. So that's why you kind of need somebody like your friend being like, hey, like, you need that second opinion. And then also the same thing with like promoting a podcast. Like, a lot of times I used to be that way too. Like, I didn't even have an Instagram for the longest time. I think I don't drink as much anymore, but there was a time where I was definitely drinking a lot. And I was at Rheingeist. That's when it happened. And my friend was like, listen, which is, for those of you who don't know, a great Cincinnati local brewery. She's like, you need to have an Instagram. You would be great at it. And I'm like, what am I going to do with it? And now I promote my podcast on this, but it's really for the guests. Like, I'm like, yes, we need to promote Gabe and get this album out. So it's like, you just think about, like, sure, you get some kind of exposure out of it, but it's more important to the guest. And I'm like, I get to meet all these cool people. So I'm sure that's what I love about the idea of you making an album, because you got to showcase your work, but I'm sure you got to meet so many cool people out of it. Probably people who have like made albums, people who are probably being like, hey, I'm making mine, talk about, and then you got to meet all the people who kind of create that whole, it really takes a village to make something like that, even though you're just like, we just talked about that. There's a graphic designer, there's a sound editor. So now you kind of, I don't know, I guess you could probably say you kind of have like a family oriented experience out of it in a sense. You've got all these great people in your life. That's great.
Yeah. And the first track of the album, I kind of name everybody, and I start naming like the door guy, he's a comic, and the waiters, they're comics too, and the guy in the back, he does my graphic design, and he really made the promotion for that week. So it's like it all is, it takes a village is the best way to describe it, because at least that's how it felt with this project and in Cincinnati, and basically from even the start was friends of mine being like, why don't you have an album yet? You should have an album. Call it Sorry. Call it, like Sorry About That or something like Canadian, like. And
of course, yeah.
And having those friends and comedians, and I made sure to give them guest spots on the shows and make sure to let them know that you're a big part of this. Like, your encouragement for me to, follow through and put an album out it was needed, and sometimes you need some of that positive encouragement around you to just basically follow through and do it, because it's a lengthy, hard process, and if you just do it alone, or you have the attitude that this is all on me and you want to do everything yourself, I think that would be like way too much pressure and way too hard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I do here is it's like, I mean, you saw, we have Chris, we've got Kea. It's just so much nicer to kind of like have a team and like do an auto check. What am I at? Like AutoZone?
Auto check is good. I think we need to replace your filter over here. It's got some brown stuff in it. Almost doing my material. I'm almost bringing in my material.
Oh, I see. And I watched your videos because your website was great too. Everybody should go visit Gabe's website as well. So I got to know you. And that's what I try to do even before this, because I was like, well, I don't really know Gabe personally. But like I said, I saw that you had a shirt swap thing that you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this? Because that was extremely entertaining. Where did you come up with this idea?
That idea started with the first shirt swap. It's me wearing a Quebec Nordique shirt. I met this guy in Lansing, Michigan at a comedy club called Connections in Lansing that's now closed. And that's where all these great stories start, at comedy clubs that are now closed that were awesome. And the guy came up to me after the show. He told me he was a big Quebec Nordiques fan. It's an old Canadian hockey team that is now the Colorado Avalanche. They moved to a new place, so they don't even exist. And he was like, I love that shirt, man. And he had on something like that, like a flannel, one of those like snap tie cowboy shirts. And I was like, that's a pretty sweet shirt too. And I was like, he's like, let's swap. And then I said, only if we get a before and after picture, and then I'm going to post it online. And it got a kind of good reaction, but I just remember like, and I woke up the next day and I was like all like hungover and like, where did the shirt come from? I'm all confused. And then I saw that I had posted and I was like, oh boy, man, I'm a mess. And then I started telling that story on stage, and then people would come up to me afterwards, and it just became a thing with me. Like after a show, I would end up swapping sometimes 2 or 3 shirts, and sometimes it was like a girl with like, you know, like spaghetti straps, and it would just look ridiculous on me or something, or it went in different places as it went on. And then I got to the point where I was posting about it, and it got like, and then I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. This is the worst. This is so annoying. And then people would come up to me and say, like, are you going to swap shirts? And I'd be like, oh, you know who I am. It was like a way to understand people that had either recognized you or identified you before. Like I was in Appleton, Wisconsin in, I think it was August. It was post-pandemic. So things were just opening up. It's one of my first clubs that I went back and I worked at. And someone came up as I was walking in the front door, and they were like, do you still swap shirts? And I'm like, I think COVID killed the shirt swap, you know? Like, I don't think I really want to be posting that either. Like that's not going to get a positive reaction that it once got.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. It was really funny, though. I thought it was actually kind of a really good branding technique for you, which clearly that's what people are recognizing you now for, wearing different shirts. And it's such like a small thing. Like it's just super silly, and like it doesn't take too much effort, but at the same time, it makes such an impact. So who knows, maybe once COVID lies down, you know, you can be able to do it again. But it was pretty funny. I was like, some of those shirt options, Gabe, you know, who knows, maybe you got some other fashion choices in your future. So I feel like clothing is a branding thing for you, though, because then you also have a 24-hour pajama party shirt. I feel like I've had a 24-hour pajama party all through quarantine. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Somebody sent me that, and it was like, it was right out, and there was 3-month pajama party. And that shows how long ago it was. 3 months. Like, well, that's more like 9-month pajama party now.
Right.
But it basically is a joke about how, and like a lot of people, I like to wear, you have a day off and you're in your pajamas, you make it halfway through the day, and then you just make a deal with yourself that you're like, I'm going full day. I'm not getting out of these pajamas. And then my joke is how I have to go run an errand and I get into a car accident in my pajamas. And that situation, which actually is a true story that I was, it wasn't necessarily that type of story, but I was actually going to be on a podcast, and I wore my pajamas to the podcast because I thought that was pre-Zoom when no one would see us. And I walked in and I'm in my pajamas, and they're like, yeah, because no one's going to see us. They can only hear us. And then after the podcast, I was driving home and I got into a car accident in my pajamas. And that embarrassing moment when you're on the side of the road exchanging information, I made that into the kind of the crux of the joke, and I got a good line, and I kept doing it. And then I made a shirt about it, and the shirt is more, it's kind of like people buy it because they want it to be their pajamas, you know, like now this t-shirt is your pajamas. My sales pitch would always be, I'd hold up the shirt, and then I'd say, I asked for like the softest shirt, so this could be your pajamas. And I let someone touch it in the audience, and they would be like, and I'd give them the microphone, and they'd say, that's really soft, or like say, I don't know, it'd be different every show. And, but I that's another thing that is done. I'm not, no one's talking about it now, like stay away.
Well, let me ask you, were these like flannel pajamas, or was this like a onesie? Like what kind of pajamas were we talking about here?
Oh,
I'm
you're in
just
luck.
curious.
You're in luck that I have.
Oh my
I have a
God.
flannel onesie right here with little Curious George feces, and that's a full onesie. I really wish it's like a Curious George thing or a sock monkey thing.
Yeah.
But I should get it branded with me in the 24-hour pajama party true onesie. But also, I have that, and this is like my box of T-shirts here. I would actually, I have the onesie, so I'll do the joke. I'll go out, sell merch after the show, and I'll be in a onesie. When they come out after the show, I'm in a onesie, and I'm like, and that is.
I'm sorry, I'm just laughing. Go ahead.
No, these are all cautionary tales, because once you do something like this, and then you see that you're like, whoa, when I wear a onesie, I really sell a lot of these things. And then you're like, I am going to be changing into a onesie after you're done with your set, and you're like, I got to get out there, hurry. And it's a good idea in concept, and then you find the reality of staying on top of getting into your onesie after your set can be difficult.
Oh, I love that though. I actually I don't know, I just think that's so that's why I was wondering, because I was like, because I've never bought a onesie. I have a few friends that have bought one, and they're like, you should get one. It's just so funny and so comfortable. And I'm just like, I haven't gotten to it yet, but now, who knows? Now that I'm inspired by this 24-hour pajama party, this is going to just be my look when I go to work, when I come home. I'm just going to throw it on and see what happens. Maybe I'll get taken more seriously when I start giving tours, because I tour when I'm not doing comedy, which is a lot now. A lot now. My day job is, which is perfect for me because I was a theater major, but I show people apartments, and people are like, oh, you're so fun. Like, we love you. And I'm like, oh, if I put on a onesie, then maybe I would be a little bit more lovable after that. So get a sale in.
That'd be a good pick. That'd be a good, this is just so homey. I just feel so homey here.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Just call it home. You're going to be right here. It's going to be great. So I'm already inspired. But yeah, no, I think that's great. I think your branding is awesome. But speaking of your brand, you started here in St. Louis, which is, well, our listeners obviously know. And for those of you who are just tuning in, that is where we're based out of. And you started over at the Funny Bone. So you said you kind of come home on occasion. What do you miss about St. Louis? Is it the toasted Rav? Is it the hill? What's going on? I know that you're in Cincinnati, so there's a lot of similarities. But what do you miss about our city?
Lion's Choice. Every time I come back, I love getting Lion's Choice. That would be the main thing I miss. But you know what? I'm a huge St. Louis Blues fan, big hockey fan.
Yeah.
And nobody knows how to ice skate in Cincinnati. No one even knows that hockey is a sport. So when I come home and you're in that bar that everybody's cheering for the Blues, you know how annoyed you are by that? I love that. That's what I'm like, oh, people here that care. Usually it's just me and the Buffalo Wild Wings, and there's one game of the St. Louis Blues playing, and everything else is basketball, and people are making fun of the fact that there is a hockey game up there and stuff. So I miss the Blues and the hockey culture in St. Louis, which is really good, and you don't realize until you leave. And I don't miss... Well, there's good beers. Actually, Schnickelfritz. I love Schnickelfritz. That's a great, is it Urban Chestnut? Is that the bar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brewery.
Yes. I actually, Jimmy orders that. That's actually like his favorite flavor of the Urban Chestnuts. It's so funny you brought that up. I understand, though, because being from Cincinnati, I also enjoy hockey. And it's really hard to explain to people when I go home. I'm like, oh, yeah, like the Blues, like they just won the World Cup, which here I live in the city. So people were like on parade and in the street, and like we had to clean up because there was so much partying happening. And then I go to Cincinnati, and I remember when I was little, you know what, Gabe, I don't even know if it's there anymore. It was called Cincinnati Gardens. Yes, it's torn down.
Before.
Okay.
It was actually an exact replica to the Maple Leaf Gardens, which is in Toronto. So the architect that made that stadium made the Cincinnati Gardens. Cincinnati Gardens also, the Beatles played there. So that's a little trivia knowledge for the Cincinnati and of course, this is what people are telling me in the locker room as they're like, yeah, the Beatles played here. Like, and
you're like, cool. Okay. Yeah.
And you get out there and you're like, this is really big. Yeah. But there wasn't, I think that, the Ducks, probably the Cincinnati Ducks, when they were here, they played at the Gardens. But now there's a place downtown where the Cincinnati Stingers play.
Oh, it's the Stingers? The Cyclones.
No.
Right? Isn't it the Cyclones? Am I making this up?
Yes. I said it wrong. Stingers is from the 70s. That's a Cincinnati hockey team from the 1970s. I'm that old.
Get with the times, Gabe. No. Oh man, these washed up comedians. I tell you what. No, I'm just kidding. You are fantastic. You're very accomplished. I just remember Cincinnati Gardens because I don't know if you remember like the reading list that you would do. Like you could read so many books a summer and then get like a pizza party or something out of it. Yes. So the library that I went to one year, I don't know how they secured this because it's a public library. So they were like, if you read like 100 books or something, you'll get tickets to the Ducks over at Cincinnati Gardens. And I had seen the Mighty Ducks, the movie. So I was like, oh, this is exactly what it's going to be like. So I remember being in my room and like reading it. And I was like, I am going to get tickets to this hockey game. Like, I don't care. Like people are like, come outside and play. And I was like, no, because I have to get these tickets. So it was really cool. I was super nerdy, but we got in the front row. And I remember being in the third grade looking at this. I was like, this is the coolest experience. Like I dropped my popcorn. I was like, I don't even care because somebody just got thrown up against the glass. And this is great. Like, so I feel the same emotion that you feel about it. But also as a Cincinnati native, I am a diehard fan to the Bengals. I know they lose all the time, but I'm still always there for my guys. So my dad played football for the University of Cincinnati when he was in college. So I think it's just kind of, and my parents, their first date was to the Bengals. So obviously it's just something that like kind of comes with our territory. But it is kind of hard. I mean, but that's the only thing I have since here we don't have a football team. So
yeah.
Sore subject.
That's what exactly. And then, so, but you still, I mean, I guess you could be Kansas City fans. Travis Kelce, University of Cincinnati product right there. But there is a big Bengal. It's kind of, when I first moved here, I'm like, oh, you all are depressed about liking this team. You like hate that you love the Bengals. But what I've seen in my time is a growth, and there's been some success, not much success, but like winning seasons and playoffs and stuff like that, but never anything like Super Bowl bound or anything like that. But now they've got Joe Burrow, the number one overall quarterback. There's some promising, and I found myself to be kind of a Bengals, kind of a bandwagon jumper. I guess I could say, like when things are going well, I like cheer, and then when things aren't going well, I'm like, I don't have anything, I don't have a.
You're basically a Cincinnatian now, so that's usually how it goes. We're like, we love them, and then the moment they lose, it's like, oh, I already knew this was going to happen. I'm just going to go over to Rheingeist and drink my feelings. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Shout out to Rheingeist, not sponsored, but anytime, guys, anytime.
Yeah. Rheingeist, you could, maybe expand to St. Louis too. Get some taps over there. Could be good. Get some truth.
I was about to say, we have a brewery district in Cincinnati. Is there a certain beer? Because I know we talked about Urban Chestnut in St. Louis. Is there a certain brewery that you like over in Cincinnati? There's a ton that are popping up too, like even more I see on Instagram all the time.
Yeah, there's new ones. I really like, Rheingeist is kind of one of my favorites. I wear Rheingeist Mad Tree and different Cincinnati T-shirts whenever I'm traveling and performing outside, just to kind of rep Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And my favorite is probably hard to say. I really like Taft's a lot, but then I'm a little biased because they put together comedy shows and have a little comedy connection there. But I like Taft's. I think their logo of President Taft stuck in a bathtub is just hilarious. hilarious. I have that shirt too, and I wear that. And like some of these breweries, I've done a show there, and then whether it's like the manager, the brewmaster will come up and talk to me, and he'll be like, do you want a shirt? If you're going to wear it, we'll give you a shirt. So I'll wear a Taft shirt or a Mad Tree or Rheingeist whenever I'm traveling or in Dayton or Indianapolis, someplace close by that kind of people know what they know what I'm doing when I'm wearing it.
Tri-state area. But speaking of, tri-state area, that's what, especially when you listen to Cincinnati, where he's like, in the tri-state area, here's all the stuff that's going on. But Gabe, we really have to ask you the real question when it comes to Cincinnati food. And I think you know where this is going to go.
Oh, is it GS or S? Gold Star or Skyline? Right?
I was about to say, are you, now that you're, home Cincinnatian, CINCY, are you a Skyline guy or are you a Gold Star guy? And that's a very important question in those parts.
It is. I would probably say Skyline, but I live right next to a Gold Star and go there.
Oh, no.
No, not Gold Star. It's so similar. It's basically the same thing. That's the way I look at it. But I'm a Coney. I would say, are you more of a Coney or a three-way guy? And I'm more of a Coney. I
like those Coney. Too. Yes. Do you get onions on it, though, or do you just do the three-way?
I have you. See, if you get onions, they put so many onions on there that you're like, oh boy, you had onions. So I like a little bit of onions, but then I don't want to be that person that's like, just a little bit of onion. So I just say no onions. I'll just say no onions to be safe, wrecking everybody else's night as I'm yelling at them from stage or something. No, not. That's not my style. I'm not a yeller. I'm not a big yeller.
That's a good thing. That's okay.
I do have a funny story of my first Skyline. I went to Skyline, and everybody told me all about this chili. You got to try the chili. You got to try the chili. So I sat down, and I'm like, I will take one bowl of your chili, please. And they didn't know what to think, and I thought it was totally. I'm like, the chili stuff. I've heard so much about. Give it to me. And no one orders it in a bowl, and I ate it, and I was like, garbage. Why would anybody eat this? This is like meat soup. And that's why they put it on spaghetti right there. That's the reason.
It's a little bit soupier, exactly. So that's why you have to do it like on a coney or on spaghetti. So that's like one of the things. I also grew up right next to a Skyline, so it was a little bit easier for me and access. And then when Jimmy and I ever go back to Cincinnati, that's like one of the first things I do. I'm like, we have to go to Skyline, and like he'll eat it. It's not like his favorite thing by any means. He's like, you definitely have to like be from here to love it. Like this is like, He's like, you're definitely from here, because I've never seen somebody so excited to like come in here and have like cheese and spaghetti, or like I said, I mostly get the conies, but every once in a while. But just curious. So if any Skyline or Gold Star lovers listening, they'll be able to judge your comedy just by that answer alone.
I said basically the same thing, and everybody's like, you're kidding me, get out of here.
Seems like, especially like for those who don't know, like Cincinnati people, they like love Skyline. So it's just, there's such a big like head to head kind of thing about it. But there is a Gold Star by me. It was just a little bit further. So who knows, maybe I don't know. I'm just going to keep it at Skyline. That's what I loved. But speaking of your comedy though, we're in this time of COVID, right? It's been kind of weird to be performing. I know like we've been doing podcasting, radio stuff, but how have you been navigating COVID right now, comedy wise? I know you've got your album out, but have you been writing a lot? Are you watching like any cool specials? What is Gabe Kea's secret to keeping busy during this time?
It's a lot of listening to podcasts, doing podcasts. This is my second podcast with someone like from Indiana earlier today. So I enjoy it, but I really, really do miss open mics. A lot of people don't even like open mics, and the whole concept of them is really funny. And the pandemic kind of lets you peel back the layer and see like the group of people that all go to this bar, like there's no regular audience members. It's just comedians. You all know each other. You all know everybody's jokes. You walk in and you're like, oh crap, they know all my jokes. Now what am I going to do? You know, you have that feeling again sometimes. I miss that a lot. I miss getting together, hanging out. I know some people are like, people just want to hang out. Yes, I want camaraderie. I want to see other people, and I want to talk to other comedians and be like, hey, where were you just? What happened there? Talking like the green room talk. I really miss that stuff. And comedy has really slowed down in general. Obviously, some places did open back up over the summer, and people were doing a lot of outdoor shows here in Cincinnati. Several parking lot outdoor, events and shows, and had a lot of great experiences doing those. But obviously, when November came around, the options were kind of fewer and far between. We had an open mic, I think, one a week, which I kind of like that, like scaling back. So you're like saving up all your material for this one open mic. It reminded me of like when I first started doing comedy. There was only one open mic. There wasn't like bar night where you could hit like different night, like it morphed into. And but now that that's gone, I miss that. I miss having those opportunities. And I have had some opportunities just recently performed. And it's when you haven't, and the thing for me is the gaps now are not like, oh, it's been a week, or it's been a few weeks. Now it's a month and a half was the last time I went on stage. And my first show, I'm nervous, like I'm starting all over again. And then I go up there, and I usually lean heavily on older stuff that I'm comfortable with. And then the next night, if I'm doing a week or something, I'll be like, okay, that was fine. I'm okay. I comedy still. And then but new material is harder to do when it is actually like brand new when you're doing it. Like when it's just concept, when you have the open mic rooms that you can go, you can like kind of hammer out these concepts and find the punchlines and tighten stuff up and make it an actual joke that you feel comfortable putting into your regular set. We're missing that right now, and that's the hardest thing for me dealing with. So I have a little set list over here. If I could just go through. No.
What do you think?
Try some of these bits. Let's see how they work. This is the same as doing Instagram live shows where you have one person that reacts to what you're saying.
Right. That's another thing I'm kind of excited about when COVID is over. I keep like accidentally joining people's live streams, and it's so awkward. You know what I mean? Because it like shows up where the notification comes up when you're like just using your phone, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I completely, and then you feel awkward because it's just like clearly you and then the other person. And then you're just like, okay, bye. Like, that's one thing I could just live without, is like being on other people's live streams. And like I said, I have a podcast. The difference is though, is that this is pre-recorded. We can edit things, we can fix things around. But when you're on like Instagram live, like unless you're like a famous celebrity that's got like 1 million followers, like it's like, and I hate to be that person, and you maybe disagree with me on that, but it's so difficult. It's just a weird time right now.
I disagree with that. I agree with it. And then when you get on there, it's not even that they see your face, but they know, like your name pops up, like you joined, and then they're like, oh, and then someone might mention like Gabe's here or something, and I'm like, oh, do I have to stay now?
Yes.
Now I'm here. Like,
that's the problem. Everybody's like, oh, Molly, thanks for being so supportive. And sometimes I'll just go along with it. I'm like, oh, you are so welcome. Absolutely. And then like in my heart, I'm like, did not mean to do this. So it's, but that's, you know what? That's okay. I think that's just a thing. I was listening to Mark Maron, because I love his podcast, WTF. And he was saying that, I forget who he was interviewing, but he was saying that he's like, it's just a weird time to be making stuff. Like, it's like, and sometimes it's not always of the best quality. So everybody's just like, well, we're all trying, or like, we're doing the best and stuff. And he's like, is this really our best though? Or something like that. And it's so, I mean, I'm butchering it, but it was so well done how he delivered it. But I mean, it is what it is. We're doing the best we can at this time. But speaking of, doing comedy and doing shows, going, post or pre-COVID, obviously you've worked with a lot of great people, as I saw on your website. Was there anybody in particular that you just loved working with during your many accolades and many shows and clubs and colleges across the country?
Yeah, I actually just updated at first I think it was Joel McHale was kind of like one of the bigger names that I had worked with, and that was in my bio for a long time. And then I had Nikki Glaser. Nikki Glaser and I started in St. Louis, same time. We like friends forever, and yeah, I just worked with her recently here in Cincinnati, and it was so much fun. It was so good to just to hang out and just to be around her, and she's a big reason of me because she's originally from Say too. I don't know if I'm sure you knew that.
I listened to her podcast. It's done now, but I loved her show You Up, and then I listened to her podcast all through the pandemic. So when it ended, I was like, it's like when you lose a good show and you're just like, oh, where do I go from here? Like, like, what do I do? And she even said that in the last episode. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan and on board. So I'm loving this. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, starting out and someone that's had such great success in so many different aspects. I remember early on, and this wasn't even early on, but this was over 10 years ago, she was getting on Last Comic Standing real quick. She was getting Tonight Show, and I was like, my friend's getting on the Tonight Show, and like these are huge things. And now looking back, she's like she's had several shows. She had a show on MTV, had a show on Comedy Central, the Sirius XM show, like so many different avenue. And now the Netflix specials that's like the new Tonight Show is getting a Netflix special it's the premiere, and that's not even mentioning the roasts, which is probably what made her blow up the most. Those
are my favorite. I love when the roast mode, as she says on her podcast, but I love the roast. Like that is something I wish I could do. I think it is like one of the coolest things. Anybody I see perform it, I'm like, oh wow, that's really good. We had a guy that his name is Jay Light, so shout out to him, good friend of mine. He actually was a writer for the roasts, and I think he actually did Nikki Glaser's show Not Safe at some point too. But that's really cool. Well, now if anybody's watching, if we could get Gabe a Netflix special, that would be great. We got to get some credits on here. You would be great for one. I love that. But anyway, I'm so glad. What's always kind of cool is seeing people succeed, and especially when you are friends with them and working with them. So that kind of, bringing it back to you, I feel like that's, I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook in Cincinnati who do stand-up comedy for the times that I go back. And I know you said they're like testimonials. I kind of feel like I died when I read them, but I do think that's really wonderful to see people speak so highly of you. And even here in St. Louis, people are like, oh, Gabe's doing great. He's doing all this stuff. But most importantly, it's always interesting to kind of see how your family feels about comedy. And I know your daughter, she's very young. She's 5. Yes. But yes, which is great. I know there's probably a lot of e-learning, as we talked about earlier before we started recording, that's happening. And that's, another experience in itself. But I think I'm always interested in seeing a child at that age. Does she know that you do stand-up comedy?
She does. And you know what she wants me to do on this podcast? She wants me to tell her joke. She's like, and then I'm done with the podcast or the show, if it was the show. And she'll say, did you do it? She's so did you do my joke? And I'm like, oh, you know what? I forgot. And I never lie and say, oh, I did it. And I really didn't, and sometimes I have on stage. I've done and her joke that she wrote, this is her joke. I'm going to do it on the podcast. My joke that she wants me to do every time I have a show is she says, when is the son's birthday? Sunday. And
that's great. Oh, that's my humor. So clearly she and I would get along great.
The cool part about that joke is that she actually wrote it, and that is her original content. And so she told me a joke that she wanted me to do on stage. And it was, why did the chicken wear suntan lotion? Because he didn't want to get fried. And I'm like, that's a really good joke. Did you write that? And I asked her, I was like, did you get that? And she goes, no, Lionel from Fancy Nancy wrote that. And I'm like, oh my God, but at least you told the truth about where you heard it. You're better than some of my friends that I have. These people would have been like, yeah, I wrote that. Yeah. I'm like, you're honest. I'm raising an honest daughter that's willing to say, like, no, I stole that one. That one's stolen. But
which a lot of people won't admit. But you know what? She's just like, I saw it somewhere. I thought it was really great, and I knew you would appreciate it. So now, does your wife do stand-up comedy as well? Is this like a comedian family tour that we're going to see in Netflix 2022 maybe?
No, she does not, but she's way from me. She loves telling everybody that, and she makes all my material comes from her. She is very funny. She actually did her first set ever when I had an album release party. I was having a bunch of friends from Cincinnati all on the show, and it was, all sorts of people like Chris Weir, the people that did the artwork, and different comedians that had something to do with either the artwork or the scene. And she actually went up and did a set, and she did one of my jokes. And it is
very cool. All right.
She crushed. She did really well. Like, the joke did really well because the joke's kind of about her. And the jokes. You'd probably like the joke, being from Cincinnati. It's a local reference, basically East Side sort of joke, and it's about blowjobs. And
hey, yeah,
West Side blowjob joke. But she did really well. She got a great response, and then there was like a live stream of the show, and we went home that night. And I swear to God, she watched herself like 5 times. She was like, I'm watching it again. I'm like, oh my God. Now you remind me of my comedian friends right now. Like, I got to watch myself again. Oh, let's put it on the big screen. Let's do that. Yeah.
Get out the Chromecast. I'm ready. Oh my God. I love that though. Because it's like, especially when you have a perfect moment in time like that, and like, that you murdered a room, you're like, maybe we could just watch it again. That's fine. But that's great. I love that it's a whole family affair. That's awesome.
And she opened that her set by saying like how nervous she was, because she always gives me and all of his friends, give him and all of you guys so much crap that if I bomb up here, I'm never going to live it down, So that was kind of like that's a great way to open, like reveal your insecurities.
Oh my God. I love that though. Oh, that's hilarious. And you had a joke about your daughter too in the album as well, which is very, very cool. So I just love that you kind of bring, what I like about your material is that, a lot of people are like, I can relate to it or I understand it. But what I like about your material specifically is that we get to know you, not just as, only just as a comedian, which is great, obviously part of your identity, but we also get to know you, which is why I do this podcast. Is I feel like people like see your name and see something and they're like, what people like to know is they kind of like to know the human behind the, celebrity face that you've got going on here, Gabe. And I what I really like about it is that, you can just pop on Spotify and then I know a lot about your life story. So that's what I'll ask you. Do you, when you write your material or you come up with your material, however you do it, record it, is that your style is bringing your life into it? Or did you maybe start out with one-liners, or do you kind of do a little bit of both? If we were going to describe, I guess, my question is Gabe Kea's comedy style, how would you describe that?
Embarrassing my daughter 18 years in the future. She's gonna like look back at this and be like, what did you say? Yeah, I worry about that aspect of like being too personal and doing stories that are a little bit revealing about my personal life. But at the same time, I think I got some comedy advice about doing things that are your story and about you are going to be unique to you, and there's less chance of, you're going to be more original if you're doing it that way. So you're talking about experiences from your life there is a difference on the album. Even there's some stuff that's like Chick-fil-A, they say my pleasure or whatever. You know, anybody could go to Chick-fil-A and see that they say my pleasure and come up with a joke about that or whatever. But then there's other aspects of, like, my mom put it, you know, making me a jean quilt for my graduating from high school, and not everybody has that story. And I didn't realize how unique it was until I had some comedians over to my place when I was living in St. Louis, and they started making fun of me for my jean quilt, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Yeah. They're crushing it by making fun of me.
I love that, though. But, you know, that's what I said. You've got all these, like, really, I mean, I don't want to say unique, but, like, I mean, it's just like something that I've never heard before, which I guess maybe that is unique. Who knows? I feel like when I say unique, it's like it's so unique, or it's so, like, when people are like unapologetic, like that, like, I don't want to hear, like, I hate using those words. Exactly. And I was in college, I did theater and journalism. And in journalism, you use a lot of words like unique and unapologetic, because those are words you use when you're trying to, like, keep professional. But I always hated that, because I feel like it's not enough to describe when somebody's, like, doing something really cool and really different, standing out. And I think it's kind of great, too, that you're incorporating, like, your background from St. Louis to Cincinnati. But the one thing I'll end on is, you know, you've made Cincinnati your home base. Obviously, you come to St. Louis, and I hope that we someday meet in person one day when COVID is dying down at some point.
I'm sure we will.
I'm sure we will. Yeah, exactly.
It'll be 4 or 5 months. Come on. I'm not even counting on a vaccine. I'm just hoping that, like, 4 or 5 months, things will be
right.
Things will
No,
be crazy.
For real, just, like, you know, at some point. But for right now, you are in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have obviously, again, like I've mentioned throughout this podcast and many episodes beforehand, I have a lot of emotional ties there, just because that's where I grew up. It's where I went to high school. But now you've kind of made that your home base. And I know there's going to be people listening that are from Cincinnati. So why Cincinnati? Why choose that as your home base as a Cincinnati-based comedian now?
I would say that when I first moved here, I thought I was going to be here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then I might be moving to Chicago, maybe moving to New York or LA or somewhere on from here. And I think after just a few years, just like maybe like the third or fourth year, I just realized how much I love, like, just the community, the people that were in the comedy community and specifically, and other people just in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got a very unique. It seems like not a lot of people, or they don't leave, or they leave and then come back, and they're like, oh, thank goodness I'm back. This is so normal for me. And there's something about this place that is very home-ish, and it's hard to describe, but I do know that just like we can use examples from the album and all those people that were around me and created, and there's so many different examples of times when I had hard times here in Cincinnati. I maybe got I was out of an apartment, or I was into a different situation, and I stayed on a buddy's couch for a month or something like that, and someone backed me up, someone helped me, and those are the things that have kept me in Cincinnati and make me feel like this is a place that is full of great artists, not just comedians, but people that are multi-talented, do many different things, and there is a feeling that you don't have to go somewhere else to create. You can create right here with the people that you have around, and I've felt that, and I can honestly say I felt a lot of that in St. Louis as well, you know, like, but the move for me when it's been 10 years now. So it just seemed like it was going to be like, oh, this will be something new. And it's kind of like St. Louis, but just a little bit different. And it's really grown on me. And this is where I unbutton my shirt and show my Bengals tattoo on my nose. It's like hooray across my chest, and I'm like, then I got this, so I've got to stay.
Oh, I love that. Because some people do have that, by the way, so it's okay. But go ahead. Back to your point.
Well, I think there's this idea, and I've said it in Cincinnati before, where I say, I moved to Cincinnati for stand-up comedy, and then people laugh at that. Like, that's hilarious. Why would anybody do that? And then I'm like, you're in a comedy club, as I'm telling you that, like, there is comedy everywhere, and here it is really great. And a lot of people from other cities talk about this place like it is a great place to create. The people that we have here are they're funny, they're crazy, they're innovative, they're willing to take risks. They're all the things that I love about stand-up comedy, and I feel just really at home. And I made this like really at the end of my album release party. It was just like this sad, like not really sad, but it was happy. It was just like a very emotional, like, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad that all of you are here and on my show. And someone like tweeted afterwards, like, I was going to move to LA, but not after hearing Gabe's speech or something. And I was just like, oh my God.
You're welcome.
You probably moved to LA. I don't know. I don't know if you're you might not get on TV in Cincinnati. I don't know. No.
No, you know, I relate to you because we're similar in that regard where, you know, I moved back to St. Louis. I went to school here originally at SLU, and then I wasn't expecting to move back here. And I was the same way. I was like, oh, I'm just going to be in St. Louis for a little bit until I have friends here, and I'm going to figure it out. And then I found the comedy scene here because I was doing theater here when I was originally here. And that can also be like comedy, you know, very exhausting. You're like doing all this stuff at once. You're, again, not to use another cliche word of like hustling and grinding, but like, you know, you are doing that. And that's when I fell in love with stand-up, was with the St. Louis community here. And there's many times where I'm like, you know, I'm in theater, I wrote plays, I produce stuff, and you know, I've only been doing comedy for 4 years. I'm not at your age where that's you know what I mean though? Like, you've been doing comedy for so very mature and seasoned, Gabe Kea. But why I say that is that, you know, there are many times where you kind of think those thoughts, and then you have a great community like you have in Cincinnati and I have in St. Louis. And of course, those also combine every time you go home and I go home, you get back to that community. And there is something really beautiful about that because it reminds you of all the positive people and like just people that are willing to be there for you. And a lot of people say that they're like, oh, comedy in St. Louis. And now I help Chris Sear run St. Louis Independent Comedy. And it's so cool to be able to like run the social media and share things because people are like, oh, I didn't know that, you know, there was a virtual showcase here, or like, I didn't know that the Funny Bone had like, you know, all-star shows going on. And I'm like, there is so much around you that you just don't realize until you kind of walk out and see it, that there's almost a grown appreciation for it. So I completely agree. After that, go ahead.
I also, I feel the same way about St. Louis. When I go back there, I feel like, oh man, I feel at home here. I feel good when I'm trying to think of the bar in Maplewood where you draw a card. What's that? It's Chris Sear's show.
Oh, the Crow's Nest. Yes.
Crow's Nest.
Wild Card Comedy. Man. Yes.
Every time I would go and I have a week or something in St. Louis, I would always go to Crow's Nest afterwards. And even if I'm not going to do a set, it's just to see everybody that, you know, all the people in St. Louis that I always enjoy seeing their sets, running into them. And those, and it's funny how I'm talking about the people, but the people always change. Like when I first moved to Cincinnati, it was a totally different group of people. Those people have all either moved away or not. You know, Tabari's still here. It's for me and Tabari. But there's a changeover, and there's that same thing in St. Louis, and it's always constantly happening. And right now, there's new people in Cincinnati that just started doing comedy right before the pandemic, and I was like, oh my, I can't believe you just started doing comedy now. It's not like this normally, you know. Right. It's like it's so crazy, but we're also in a comedy scene. We're also like very inclusive and like very looking for the new people to come in, so we can steal their energy and take that enthusiasm and use it ourselves. No, I'm joking.
Oh man. Oh, I love that though. But I feel the same way you do. So yeah, that's great. I enjoy that you enjoy camaraderie as well. And now I'm a Gabe Kea fan. You're fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so good that we have this connection, and we got to hang out. Next time you're here or I'm there, we're gonna definitely hang out.
Yes.
Have a few drinks, and, or I will. I'm not telling you you have to drink or anything.
No peer pressure here. And then we'll continue that Skyline and Gold Star Chili chat just a little bit later. But nice. Gabe, before we go, why don't you tell us where we can find all the social media, or just even where we can find your album? Where can we just find all about Gabe Kea?
You can Google Gabe Kea, Gabekea, and my website will be the first thing that pops up. So that's got all my social media on it. It's got my Twitter, got my Instagram, got my TikTok. I got the TikTok for the kids. I got Snapchat. I've got some Vine videos that I have on YouTube. No, I don't have any of those. But it's all on Gabe Kea. And then my Instagram. Funny story about how you said someone was convincing you got to get an Instagram. I was in Northside at someone's house, and they're like, you got to get an Instagram. And I came up with Abe Lincoln T-shirt. That was my Instagram name, when I should have just done like Gabe Kea Comedy or something. But
I'm looking this up right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. Abe Lincoln T-shirt is my Instagram. And I do have a little Abe Lincoln. I've got a bunch of shirts I have on my website also. So you can check out my shirt swaps on the website. You can see my schedule that's wide open right now on my website.
This is funny. He's not wrong. It's there. So you'll have a new follower. It's good.
Nice. I'll follow back.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, just remember, everybody, I can vouch for it. Dumber Than a Fish, you can listen to on Spotify. I've got Spotify Premium. You can probably listen to it everywhere else. And he's correct. You'll see everything on his website if you Google Gabe Kea, because that's what I did. So he's not wrong. But Gabe, what we do whenever we casually end an episode is I go, what are you going to casually do now that this episode is done?
Now I'm going to casually go upstairs and give my daughter a bath, maybe. Her mom will probably be like, your turn. Come on. Give her the bath.
You guys are so funny. I love it.
And then I'm going to put her to bed, and then we are going to watch Fargo. We are so into Fargo right now. It's like such a good show. And I actually caught my wife last night. See, this happens with couples all the time. You're like watching a show, and then the person like goes and they're trying to fall asleep, and they're like, I'll just watch the next episode. And she fell asleep, and her iPad flipped over when she fell asleep. And I was like, I was totally like, I cheated on. I was like, she's watching episode 10 without me. She thought she was going to get away with it, but I totally busted her.
The iPad does that sometimes. It just busts you.
Yeah, she's in trouble.
That's right.
I haven't even told her that I saw it last night. So that you reminded me that I got to go and give her crap.
Sorry, Abby. She's going to watch this episode and be like, Molly, and I'll be like, I didn't know, okay? I didn't, but Jimmy's the same way. I was like, I'm not going to see you in a minute. I was like, maybe I'll just watch this. And he's like, you're going to do this without me? And I'm like, well, no.
There's certain shows that I'm just like, oh yeah, go ahead, watch that or whatever. But ones that you're like both like waiting for, because she'll fall asleep and then I'll like pause the episode and put something else on, like just because I want to like, I think like watching together is like, it makes you excited when there was like a last one with a teaser, and the next night you put the daughter to sleep and you're like, all right, let's go. That's such a,
I haven't seen Fargo yet, though. So now that you guys have been watching it, I'm intrigued. I got to watch this.
Yeah. I think there's 4 seasons. We're on season 2, and it's really good. I like it a lot.
Sounds good. Vouch for Fargo. All right. So everybody, you listen to this. 2 things you have to do. Casually listen to Gabe Kea's album, Dumber Than a Fish, and also casually watch Fargo. Again, not sponsored, but apparently it is a winning situation. Well, thanks, Gabe. We will see you at some point again.
Thanks so much, Molly, and thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Key, thank you so much for doing all this. I've known Chris for many years, and he's had me on his show so many times. I'm always so appreciative of seeing him and talking to him like I got to before this. So
yeah. Oh, Chris is good people. Thanks, Gabe. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.